What's up, everybody? I'm back with Nick Helman. He's been a longtime crypto, influencer, KOL. He's been all over the place from a multi-chain universe, and he's been in the PulseChain ecosystem for a while as well. You've probably seen him. You might be following him. We're going to talk about what he's got with his new surf token, how he's bringing in people from Crypto Paradise, which is like a pretty big account. It's got like over 100,000 followers, and just kind of want to learn more about yourself and what you're doing here.
Yeah, what's going on? Thanks for having me. Of course, I've also seen you out and about on the PulseChain webs, and if my community that sees this doesn't follow this guy, I probably would. Large account over there, been with Hex and PulseChain essentially from the beginning. You were kind of a blue chip, almost maxi. That might be a negative light, but not really. And now you're starting to dive into more of the altcoin ecosystems and the DeFi plays and really the growth and blossoming of PulseChain. I've been in the space since 2016, went public in 2017, helped founded LearnCrypto.io, which is an educational and trading platform. Been advisors for tons of projects, really early to BSC. CZ even follows me because I was that early. And,
wow.
I missed the Hex train. I kind of fell victim to, I was busy with the launch of BSC and mixed the Hex train. I listened to the influencers that just said, hey, Richard Hart's a scammer, avoid this. I was like, all right, that saves me hours of due diligence. I'll just avoid it. And then once I saw the success and kind of listened to Richard Hart, that's when I actually was a day one sacrificer for PulseChain and for PulseX as well. Dove into the network, and I'm getting a lot of vibes from PulseChain that I saw with early BSC. A lot of people hating on it, kind of an echo chamber, very few really solid projects. But if you got in at that time and you got involved with the solid projects, not only does it help your brand and your community grow, but you are really going to succeed in the first cycle, the second cycle, and beyond. Because PulseChain is going to have plenty of projects that have massive upside potential, just because I believe the blue chips are so undervalued. So due to liquidity bonding, they're going to rise as well. And, these early projects will garner the strong communities that will live on cycle after cycle and produce those massive gains for its holders.
Yeah, hey, I couldn't agree more. It's really refreshing to hear that this does give you early BSC vibes, because Binance Smart Chain is one of the most successful crypto ecosystems out there. Top 5 regularly. CZ is just a powerhouse, and of course, it helps when you have Binance, the entire exchange behind you. But I remember back in those days, like 2020 and 2021, it was all about those food tokens like Yam and Pickle, and a lot of them kind of scammed out. But I never paid attention, and so we were kind of doing separate things up until the PulseChain sacrifice, which is cool. It brings a lot of people together. We've also seen a lot of sub communities with a couple of winners, even though the core coins on PulseChain have been kind of ranging sideways and down for the last 2.5 years. PulseChain's only existed for 2 years, but yeah, it's been pretty uneventful due to the bear market. However, PTGC, UFO, and some other stuff that you've been kind of promoting, it has done very well. And so what do you see? What are you excited about right now in PulseChain?
Yeah, so still a big proponent of PTGC and UFO. PTGC, so I have a model portfolio in our group if you want to check it out at learncrypto.io. And PTGC is still somewhere between like 45 to 55% of a model portfolio if you're more on the degenerate side, which meaning you don't really hold blue chips. You're getting your blue chip exposure via the index token, in my opinion, which is PTGC. It's done very well due to the token economics. Essentially, on PulseChain, you have an opportunity to create liquidity webs. And we'll talk about this more with Surf and Top Hat and what's going on there. And with these liquidity webs, you can tie yourself to the 5 blue chips of PulseChain. And when there's volatility or upside, your token will get the benefit off that as well. And PTGC does that amazingly due to the 5% tax. And whenever there's volume or interactions or bots driven by these blue chips and their other tokens they're paired with, well, guess what? The project wins. There's auto burns, there's auto LP ads, there's reflection to token holders. And people can hold one token, PTGC, and get exposure to a vast array of assets on PulseChain, including all the blue chips due to their massive liquidity pools, which they've built up over the past 18 months or 2 years since the existence of those projects. I think they're around 10 million in liquidity. So highly correlated with the blue chips now and some of the altcoins on chain. And, that's exciting for me. If you're looking for a large cap to get into, you can feel comfy holding on tight. Now, I think we're up to like 295 projects or something like that on PulseChain, still very early. So now is the time to get in early on projects that are going to be here for multi-cycles and do very well. So you'll need to look for to round out your portfolio. And I think you need to pick up a couple solid meme coins. You need to pick up a couple solid utility tokens, a couple solid community tokens, and then, of course, have PTGC as the index token. And the couple meme coins that I like is there's the argument with Teddy Bear. Is Bear the good one that's tied to a triple and PDI, or is the new Teddy Takeover the good one? Look, whatever side of the aisle you're on, obviously Teddy Bear has the risk because it has strong liquidity pairs with PDI and a triple, which had the exploits. Now, it looks like the exploits might be fixed, but who knows? Or you have Teddy Takeover, which is kind of the branding replacement of that meme token, which has big KOLs like B Roots and a lot of people talking about it. So I think choosing one of those is going to be the right call. Which one might be tougher? I'm personally liking Teddy Takeover, because I don't like having that systematic risk on my assets, especially my meme tokens when I'm holding them. And there is a little more risk with the PDI stuff going on. I'm not a dev, so I'm not here to weed through that. And then, of course, you launched your own meme coin, which you bought a bag of. I gave a call to buy, and that is Top Hat. So, I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about Top Hat, the reason I like it is tied to Richard Hart. You know, Teddy Bear is tied to Richard Hart as well. You got a strong face behind it. I don't think you would ruin your reputation over making a couple $1,000, $10,000, $20,000 when you want to hear cycle after cycle. And you really have supply control on that token as well.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the cool things is a lot of the tokens have been burned. You can make of that what you will, kind of a sacrificial, symbolic burning, but more could always be burned in the future for publicity stunts. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars of the token sent to various burn addresses, including, you know, stuff like the Hex contract address, just for marketing purposes, get people talking and wondering what things are. We're strategically liquidity bonded. Top Hat is bonded to UFO, PTGC. Obviously, the heaviest pair is Pulse. I paired some to Hex as well, because I think Hex really could be the sleeper of the cycle. I mean, there's PulseX pairs. There's now a Surf token pair, which is a smaller one, but we're going to see. Surf token seems to be doing well. I think somebody made a Teddy pair. It just seems like all of the, the more safe or reliable meme coins and core coins are bonded to Top Hat, which is good. And, you know, it has no inflation. It's just a meme coin. It launched from Pump.tires. So because it launched up from Pump.tires, you can be sure that the liquidity is burned. The UFO and PTGC liquidity is also burned. And then there's cool marketing things you can do. There's a Top Hat bot on the Twitter where you can go change other people's profile pics and put a little PulseChain Top Hat on them. And I think it's a good way to spread awareness. It's also a market updates bot. There might be all kinds of things in the future. There might be random buys and burns every now and then. You know, we can't necessarily we can't do that totally systematically, because if other people figure out the schedule of a buy and burn, right, they're just going to trade it. So, you know, it could happen at any moment when the time is right. There could be strategic buys and timing and all that. There could be a lot of potential, and obviously I'm going to keep talking about it. I think it's a fun meme. I tend to stick with just one thing, like, over a long period of time. So, like, I'm not the kind of guy that's jumping from meme coin to meme coin all the time, although I do recognize that this is a way. Meme coins themselves are a way to branch out to other ecosystems and meet people where they're already at. Because we got to face it, whether or not meme coins are silly and stupid, like, sure they are, but they're also funny and fun and engaging sometimes. And we've seen a lot of Solana success stories, albeit maybe like we only focus on the winners. And of course, there's 99% of them are losers.
Just like gambling. People tell you about the winners, but not all the losers, you know?
Exactly. But, you know, this is what people are sometimes looking for. They're sometimes shopping around for meme coins, and it's like, well, now PulseChain has them too. And we've got people behind them with faces and, you know, KOLs, influencers, whatever you want to call them. You know, sometimes the meme coins have actual features. Maybe they even have utility if you're into that kind of thing. I wanted to just kind of redirect this back to Surf, because I want to learn more about this Surf token and this crypto paradise group that you're a part of.
Yeah, so Crypto Paradise was launched a little over a year ago by, you know, myself and Crypto Amaru and Nate, and there's about 8 people behind the scenes. There's really 3 faces, but you know, there's social media managers, editors, developers, etc. And we've all been in the space for a long time, worked with each other on various other projects. When I say various other projects, we had an advisory syndicate and really still run that and just provide that value to Crypto Paradise and now Surf token holders. So that's another perk, adding utilities to the meme. Where we've helped launch a lot of projects on BSC, on Solana, on BaseChain, Arbitrum, you name it, and kind of just been advisors in the background, got the long vesting, some advisory tokens, and just help projects build and you know, learn from mistakes of others. So now with Crypto Paradise, we wanted to focus more on the marketing side. You know, I've been in this space a long time, done some paid marketing, got behind projects for multi-cycles, won big, but a lot of KOLs and influencers, you know, projects, we noticed pay them, and we're on the inside because we're advisors. They're doing a big marketing campaign. They pay these influencers, and they're either late or they're slow or they don't follow through with the promises or they just market dump the tokens. And we want to create Crypto Paradise to be, this marketing hub where projects can work with us on a long-term basis, not just one tweet, and try to really provide value to the community and really try to pick the winners of this cycle. And that's why it was created. As PulseChain kind of moved on and we saw what token economics work with PulseChain, and we have pre-sale access, we have alpha access, we have marketing deals with these projects, so we can let our community know early, hey, they're planning a marketing campaign. You might want to speculate on this or start using the project, trade the token, whatever you want to do. We thought, why not tie this business that has these multiple revenue streams to an actual asset? And of course, we trade in meme coins. So we created the surfing coconut called Surf. That is kind of the mascot of Crypto Paradise. And we're tying all this utility to the Surf token itself. Now, there's a couple things here. The Surf token does have a 5% buy tax and a 5% sell tax. That auto buys and burns tokens with every trade. That auto adds to LPs with PLS and X with every trade. And also there's 1% of that goes to reflection rewards for the Surf token holders, and 1.5% that goes to a DAO, where the DAO members get to vote how those are used. If you want to be in the DAO, you have to have 200,000 Surf or more. You're in that DAO, which is the alpha group, the pre-sale access, and getting to vote how the DAO funds are spent to broaden the Surf success and broaden Crypto Paradise's success. And that's really it. Now, people are like, well, that tax feature kind of sounds familiar. Well, that's because it's pretty similar to PTGC. PTGC has an auto buy and burn, has some LP ads. They have a bigger portion going to the DAO, and they don't really have an alpha group or utilities around it. But they've proven that the liquidity web and token taxes work in the PulseChain ecosystem. It creates higher floor prices on the token price asset itself and provides momentum and morale for the community as it incentivizes holders because they get earned rewards. So we wanted to kind of replicate that with our own twist, and then we're adding in some of these other utilities and our own meme character, which really isn't seen on PulseChain yet. A lot of memes on PulseChain are either alien related or Richard Hart related. We wanted to go with the Crypto Paradise vibe, the island vibe, the beach vibe. We're all chilling, and we're bringing the surfing coconut to PulseChain.
I like it. I've had it. I went over to cryptoparadise.com or .io, whatever the website is. It's all about escaping the 9-to-5, escaping the matrix, and that's kind of why a lot of people are in crypto. We're here to get financial freedom. So it's just a meme about financial freedom, I suppose. And your group is a group of professionals that have a lot of experience on other chains. So you guys know what works, probably a lot about what doesn't work, especially when it comes to meme coins and tax tokens and things. And you've already given me some good tips, behind the scenes, just like, hey, head over to Dex Tools. A lot of other people that aren't on PulseChain use Dex Tools. It's like, sounds kind of obvious, but it's useful advice. And
the little things, add up, and being from that multi-chain perspective. I mean, that's the biggest goal with Surf 2. We want to be a net positive to PulseChain because I believe PulseChain is very undervalued. The same thing happened when we switched from Ethereum to BSC. Yes, there's risk associated with it, but if I'm right again, we're all going to win big. And what we are trying to do at Crypto Paradise is, first of all, allow all networks to work together. We want more of a player versus environment situation versus player versus player. We're working in finance, so it's always going to be player versus player, but we're really working to onboard people to PulseChain. So when we first did the poll in the DAO, which network should we launch on? BSC was winning and Base was winning because that's what people were familiar with. But I gave the pitch. I did a video. I showed the success of PTGC and UFO. I showed the upside possibilities of Richard Hart. I predicted that he was going to beat the SEC. And eventually, they switched their votes and they switched to PulseChain. Also, in that same poll, 60 or 70% of those users never once interacted with PulseChain. Well, guess what? Now they wanted to buy Surf. You can tell the chart's doing pretty well. That means they had to figure out how to bridge the PulseChain and buy the Surf on PulseX. And now they're integrated into the PulseChain ecosystem for this entire cycle. Hopefully Surf can continue doing well, which means what? They're going to continue to bridge more assets from slower chains that they're losing on over to PulseChain, find the green candles here, whether that's buying PTGC, whether that's buying Top Hat, whether that's buying Teddy. And that's how you get the momentum and the morale and the growth of a network. You need green candles, you need good projects, and you need to get people who will get others onboarded into the ecosystem.
It's beautiful. I mean, thank you for taking kind of putting yourself out there for a chain that a lot of people thought was very risky because of the SEC case. I know you saw through it. A lot of people saw through it. But this is proof. Like, this is real people coming in from a 100,000+ person community, bringing actual new money in. And a lot of people just talk about marketing, talk about bringing new people, but ultimately talk to themselves in an echo chamber. And this is all about getting out of the echo chamber. And I believe you're one of the ones really doing that. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. You're doing your job though too. I see you all the time popping up on PulseChain. It's just about everybody has their individual reach. And we haven't been focusing on PulseChain on Crypto Paradise really, besides PTGC. And now we're diving into our reach, helping people onboard. I think the other thing that really helps the onboarding now for PulseChain, and even for the PulseChain people watching this, that even if you think you're in your own echo chamber, the upgrades to PulseChain.com make it super easy. I can write up in a little paragraph, go to PulseChain.com, scroll down to ready to get started, click on the bridge button and bridge assets over, and then click on the swap button, and you're ingratiated. So I think those updates make it a lot easier for people to feel comfortable to onboard. And now we're also starting to see these fiat on-ramps that are coming out. I haven't used any of them. I still would rather trust, the official bridge and stuff. But the more these onboarding platforms that exist, the easier it is for people to start dabbling into PulseChain. And when they get in and see green candles, they will FOMO and keep bringing more funds in. And I still think that's the right move. They're nowhere near buying the top on, any of the blue chips, of course. And then mathematically nowhere near buying the top on PTGC or Top Hat or Surf or any of these. They're really all just getting started. This ecosystem was like 300 projects. That is tiny. There's more than 300 projects launched a day on BSC or Solana.
Yeah. Really, a blue ocean, untapped opportunity. PTGC is at a pretty heavy correction. So, if you were going to get more, and it kind of can be seen as an index fund because it is strategically bonded to what some people think are the better tokens, including the core coins. However, I do still have 90% of my bag. I am kind of maximalist in a way. People don't realize that, I've got PulseX, Pulse, and Hex as my top picks. And then meme coins are just kind of a side play for me. But they do have so much potential in the terms of the low liquidity. And people don't realize that, when retail does flood back, it's very, very easy to pump some of these meme coins with very little economic energy, even though Hex itself and PulseX itself are still low liquidity when you compare them to any coin on Solana, any coin on Binance Smart Chain. Just insanely low with insanely high engagements. There's just a huge disconnect between the real social engagement and the prices and the activity. And it's like,
and I think that is planned too with Richard Hart telling people to pull the liquidity. He pulled the liquidity due to reducing the APRs on the farms, so that's inevitable. I think he's preparing himself, and then he had the hint of the God candles could happen at any moment. So we'll see what happens. And I think the disconnect comes from a lot of the huge community on Hex and PulseChain, really great community. You've lived through this PTSD of this downtrend, so people who do have cash aren't deploying it yet. And then everybody else who is very loud and active already deployed all their cash. They're long in Hex and these other assets from higher levels. So now's the time to explain to others why there's such an opportunity here, what you can get by holding Hex or staking PTGC or any of these, what the upside opportunity, and you need to get fresh capital into your bags. You need to get fresh capital into your network, because economic power is what drives prices in the end. And when prices go up, the best marketing in crypto, guys, is green candles. It's really as simple as that. It's way easier to sell a product, a utility, a meme coin, a network, any of that if price go up. You can do everything else right in the world. You can have the best utilities, but if it isn't correlating to the chart, people are going to be like, I'll look at that later. They're busy. They're living their 9-to-5s. They're looking at other fast-moving assets. They have families. They need to have urgency, and urgency comes when prices going up and they're feeling left behind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a chicken and egg problem, right? Who's going to start the first green candle? But then it's a reflexive system, and then everybody apes in and continues to buy the tops and make new highs. So what do you think is the big differentiating factor? What made you kind of choose PulseChain versus every other play right now that's available on layer 1s, layer 2s, et cetera?
Well, really, it's going against the grain. The hate for Richard Hart, whether you hate him or love him, there's a lot of people who hate him, was very high. Influencers aren't talking about him. No centralized exchanges, SEC case, Interpol. And I dove into his previous videos, the outrage marketing. I dove into the laws around the SEC case and how they're interpreting it and all the documentation. And I just kept saying, this guy is pretty smart, kind of a genius, seems to be non-nefarious. And if he truly wins the SEC case, which I thought he would, that shows that he's not nefarious and didn't sell tokens or anything like that. So I just saw it as a big disconnect, like you said, in price to what I think the reality will be. This was a year ago, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, where I saw him winning the SEC case. I see the Interpol stuff getting resolved. His lawyers have a history of resolving Interpol cases. Now we've seen him do a recorded video. And when he comes back live, he has an eloquent way of talking and selling his products. And I think he will go live once Interpol is resolved. And people are like, well, why isn't he going live now? If you didn't know, John McAfee arguably got caught and swatted by doing live streams. When you do a recorded video, it's easier to kind of obfuscate where you're at and your location and harder for people to track you down. Versus a live stream, there's more variables in which people can track that IP address and find your location. That's how John McAfee got caught and ended up going to prison. I don't think Richard wants to risk that or getting caught by Interpol. So I don't think he will go live until the Interpol situation is resolved. And since it's just a tax situation where it could just be a settlement or some money, I think his lawyers are already working on that. They've done that in previous cases. And then the live shows come, and that's when the God candles begin. So, of course, PulseChain is a copy of Ethereum. It's EVM compatible, which has the most amount of users because BSC, Polygon, Base, Arbitrum, all these are EVM compatible. So it's really easy to get people to bridge over. It's cheaper than Ethereum. That was kind of the main reason of doing it. And then you have the backing of hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ETH and the backing of a Chad and Richard Hart, which is what I like to see. In my opinion, Ethereum has been struggling this cycle because it's Vitalik and, whatever that Asian girl's name is and a little bit of woke mind virus kind of slowing things down. You need Chads in the space. It's player versus player. It's network versus network. You need to want to win in life. And I think Richard Hart has that.
Yeah, a lot of people are afraid to even talk about the price, especially over on Ethereum. It's like we're all here for the number to go up, and you can tell people the value statements, like the unique benefits of yes, PulseChain is cheaper and faster, and we think it's going to go up 100x. Like it has that potential. I mean, you can even go to pampy.app and see how little or how much. I mean, how relative, how much millions of dollars it would take to pump any of the core coins, and just imagine Ethereum at $7,000. And imagine when everybody's got this new wealth effects, and they're feeling good, they're feeling bullish. Then they go shopping for other stuff. And then who's yelling the loudest? It's people like you, me, plenty of other PulseChain YouTubers out there, PulseChain Twitter people. Mm-hmm. And I think they're more authentic, real, genuine people. Whereas like Solana, I mean, people will follow these KOL accounts that are just NFT profile pics. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with an NFT profile pic, but like they'll show something new every couple of weeks, and you could just tell, oh, these guys are just getting paid like a couple $100 a tweet. Nobody really believes in anything over there, even though they might say they do. But everyone kind of knows the game, so they're okay with it. And there's this general apathy. But I mean, yeah, in PulseChain, yeah, of course the price is down. We're all angry, depressed, like sad, whatever. But we're still here and consistent and persistent, and not just hopping around like all the time.
Well, I think that's why you're seeing some strength in some of these tokens. Top Hat, you launched, came down, and then it found a floor. Now it's slowly creeping up, and hopefully some of the advice I gave you gets you to new all-time highs. You guys are very close. Surf launched 11 days ago at an 11,000 market cap. It's now sitting at a $2.4 million market cap with 400,000 liquidity, a liquidity web, still generating 100,000 in volume a day. And yes, these things could have corrections, but the floors and the charts look so good due to the community members who are holding these tokens believe in something. They believe they're early to PulseChain. They believe they're early to these new meme tokens and utility tokens and index tokens of PulseChain. And they've been here before. A lot of the people and the holders in here have been like, look, I survived 2 years of a downtrend in PulseChain, or I was early to BSC and watched that thing go from $6 to $700. They understand the power and having conviction. You've done your due diligence. And if you find the right tokens early, you're going to be able to ride this thing multi-cycle. And when you are ingratiated in a community like that, well, guess what? You guys will have your other alpha, your insight, your gems, in which you can pick up some stuff on the cheap, take some profits, but you still hold those core conviction tokens because that's where you are finding the gains, where you see the long-term gains, and really where you're creating network connections and friendships that help you win in the ecosystem on a more broad spectrum. And that's what I see developing on PulseChain. That's what I see blossoming when I talk to yourself and Coach X and V-Roots and the PTGC guys. Everybody understands that it's still player versus player, but it seems much more like people are willing to work together, figure out what liquidity bonding works, and are ready to ride this next wave higher. No pun intended. But yeah, the surfing coconut will be part of that wave, whether you like it or not. And I'm glad that we chose to do an LP bonding with Top Hat. So I'll talk about that quickly because I want to give you your kudos. I'm just one individual. I'm not the DAO. There's 150 people in the DAO. When we're voting on the initial LPs, obviously all the blue chips need to be in it. PTGC was a heavy favorite because why? We got in it at $2 million market cap. It ran to a $350 million. It's still at $120 million. So everybody's made a ton of money there, making their reflection reward. So obviously we want to support that. And then we were looking at other meme tokens that we think could be big cycle winners. And meme tokens can run very hard, which benefits who? It benefits whoever they're liquidity bonded with. So Surf will be a beneficiary of that. We chose Teddy Takeover and Top Hat. Why? Because I looked at these, I reached out to a half a dozen, and yourself and Teddy Takeover and the Top Hat account were some of the first people to be willing to listen. It's not that you have to say yes to everything, but you're willing to listen, you're willing to learn, and you're trying to find ways for your project in your community to win as well. And when you reciprocated that, we said, all right, initial liquidity is going to be added with Top Hat and Teddy Takeover. The founders or whoever's behind it, the KOLs that are pushing it, instantly caught on without even really knowing what Surf was. And like, all right, let's hear this out, and we're down for that. We'll promote that. So that's why we're with Top Hat. I think Top Hat can run 10x, 100x, 1000x. If that happens, Surf token holders will be big beneficiaries of that. And how does that benefit you guys, the Top Hat holders? Well, Surf has gone up 215x. That means the little amount of Top Hat that we bought initially has now been doing what? Well, with Surf going up, it is buying and sucking Top Hat off of the market and putting it into the Surf and Top Hat liquidity pool, which means what? Your price is going up from those bots buying that Top Hat off the open market and putting it into a liquidity pool, which essentially can't ever be sold. So that's the benefit of liquidity bonding. That's why we kind of chose Top Hat. I believe in you. I believe in the community. I like the meme. The launch was great. We didn't have that 95% rug pull, and we do have burnt liquidity with other assets that I believe should be in the portfolio, which is the blue chips and PTGC.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, so far it's been a good guess to go with Surf as well. I like the fact that you guys have a DAO. Obviously, all this stuff was introduced to me only a couple weeks ago, but that DAO with the buying power that it does have and the people behind it kind of voting as to where to direct those resources. Yeah, if one thing pumps, we all pump together. And that's kind of the game theory that PulseChain people, for the most part, understand. PulseChain behaving as a singular organism, we can gain more by cooperating with each other underneath the umbrella of Pulse. And it's called not Moore's Law, but Reed's Law, right? The more sub-communities you have forming under one umbrella, that actually exponentially raises the value of the network as well. Sometimes even more than just the number of participants on their own. Because, if you scratch my back, I scratch your back type of thing, we can win harder in the end because we all see the vision of, like, at least for the rest of this cycle, there's so much more to gain that rather than there would be if we were just trying to fighting each other and talking shit about every project. Because if every little influencer was talking shit about each other, it wouldn't really be an appealing place to come. Like, people would be like, oh, I don't even know, this place is a dumpster fire, I don't want to come here. But if you kind of see like UFO, I like that they play nice with everybody and they make their liquidity bonds, and that's the way to, a lot of people say, oh, we're good for hacks, we're good for PulseChain. It's like, okay, well, do you have a liquidity pair with it? Like, how's the liquidity pair? And then you can financially see that there's money on the line. So,
Yeah, that's the biggest thing too. That's what I was going to get to is, now that more projects are launching, core coin holders, hexagons, and, even big holders of PTGC or whatever, kind of get in that like, all right, well, that's trash. This is that. Understand that in order for the network to grow, you need projects to launch. And I'm here to tell you there's going to be a lot of garbage launched on PulseChain. But don't invest in it then. Listen to people you trust, whether that's myself or Crypto Coffee or B-Roots or whoever is your guy, and pick the assets that you invest in. But you don't need to go out of your way to talk shit on those other projects because understand they're bringing economic power to the chain. Now, you might say if it's an outright scam or a rug pull, you might warn your community. But the thing is, every token that's launched on PulseChain, they should be creating a liquidity pair with PLS, which does what? Takes PLS out of the ecosystem, pumps PLS. They should be doing their trades and adding their liquidity to PulseX, which does what? Generates PLSX buyback and burns. So understand, even if there's projects that you don't like, the more stuff that gets launched here, the better it is for the core tickers. And then those prices rise and take your good assets up with it. The best assets in the end always raise to the top. I know, Richard Hart is famous for saying scams pump the hardest in crypto because there's mechanisms, but just don't get involved with those then. Warn your community, don't buy them, stick to the good assets. But you want developers and builders on PulseChain because everything they do pumps PLS, pumps PLSX, and gets new funds over to PulseChain. And then you hope people wake up and choose the best performing assets, which will be the blue chips, the PTGCs, the top hats, the surfs, whatever it may be. So just understand, I've been there, been early with BSC and all these other ones, and there's plenty of crap that gets launched over there. But this is why BNB is at $700. This is why, because everything is driving back into that gas token. Everything is going back to the buybacks and burns of the gas token. And whether the projects go to zero or go to billions of dollars, the main tokens win and benefit from the network usage.
Well said. Very well said. Do you have any opinion on like most token? A lot of people think Richard Hart made this meme coin. I've got a bag of it. I think there's actually a bond of Top Hat as well. What do you think?
Yeah, so I don't have a huge opinion. I don't own most myself, but I do have exposure to most because PTGC bought a big bag. So I was like, I'll let them do that and I'll get my exposure via my PTGC holdings. And Surf did decide, the DAO did vote to add most to the LP web. So there is the speculation that Richard Hart launched it. I know one holder owns a ton of the tokens and hasn't sold any of them. And it was one of the first tokens launched on pump tires on PulseChain. So I think there's a good narrative there. I think it's going to continue to do well. And what's it sitting at? Like $30 or $40 million market cap. So obviously there's some belief within the system that this is going to be a market leader. Like I said, myself, I don't know if it was Richard Hart or not, but the coincidences line up that he was an integral part of launching that, and that is one of the tokens that him or the devs are behind, and none of those tokens have been sold yet. So yeah, probably will be a winner and a narrative that lives on for the remainder of this cycle. Yeah, Surf does have an LP with that. It's cool to see Top Hat has an LP with that. PTGC has an LP. So there's a lot of good projects in this network that also think, well, maybe, just maybe, that will be his token, and we probably should bond to it just in case.
Yeah, and we've even got some yield farms on emit.farm. There's a Top Hat most. So those are my two favorite meme coins. Those are the two that I've chosen for the rest of the cycle at least. Because I think, if Richard Hart is behind it or his developers, we've even seen the origin address or one of the early SAC wallet related addresses buying up Top Hat. They sold PDI, not Top Hat, most rather. They sold PDI and they bought most. And that's pretty bullish, because that entity has a lot of economic energy and maybe they're trying to make a statement there. We don't know for sure.
Richard and the devs do like to say they talk through the blockchain. So that's why I think the PulseChain community has a lot of very smart individuals because they're kind of led by Richard Hart, and Richard Hart is kind of making you do this research. Now, some of it is conspiracy, some of it is reality, some comes true, some doesn't. But I think you guys, dive in deep to the block explorers and tracking wallets and trying to derive value from what's going on with actual transactions. And I think a lot of it has played out so far, and a lot of it will come to light that it has been Richard Hart or the devs doing a lot of these things. And that's the other thing with PulseChain. Anything that Richard Hart or the devs touch, he's trying to pump the network, guys. Pump tires on PulseChain versus pump fund on Solana. Pump fund on Solana is extracting value from all of the Solana holders, getting them to chase memes while making fees, and then they are literally withdrawing it from the network to their bank accounts and buying yachts. Pump Tires has an anonymous founder, probably Richard Hart and the devs, where all the economic power is going towards buying and burning PLS and buying and burning PLSX, which over time is going to pump the network. And that's the benevolence and the opportunity that I see here. I saw it a lot with CZ. I thought CZ was a Chad, pretty benevolent. Yeah, he's made money. He served his 4 months in jail or whatever. But he built the biggest empire that currently exists in crypto. Binance is the number one exchange. You got BSC, which is the top 5 network. And they've proven that, hey, we're going to take revenues and buy back and burn BNB. Well, that worked for BNB, didn't it? I think it's going to work for PLSX and PLS and all the blue chips due to liquidity bonding for Richard Hart as well.
And yeah, just to go off the buy and burn topic, right? For people that don't know, PLS is burned for when you use pump.tires. All of the transactions before you graduate, that 1% fee is burned, and the average daily burn for pump tires is about $20,000. And this is at a period of almost all-time low volume, like kind of pretty low sentiment. We're a little back, but we're not so back. We're already doing about 20K PLS. We're probably burning about 20 to 30K PLSX as well. So the pump.tires pulse burn is almost equal to the PulseX daily burn as well. And then you could even look at, there's a tool here that I'm pulling up right now, the burn metrics from the PulseChain network itself, just burning the fees on every transaction. We could see here that over the past month, I believe, 10 billion Pulse has been burned, which is almost $500,000. So you might even say that Pulse is burning at a faster rate than PulseX, but PulseX is the one that everybody knows as the buy and burn, and there's already been 7% of the supply. As the price of PulseX goes higher, the buy and burn will be lower because it's going to cost more to buy, obviously. So we actually might see Pulse become more scarce. That's kind of a hot take. I don't know if anyone's talking about that yet, but
that's a pretty hot take, because I was going to ask you, what's your favorite core ticker, and you've been talking about PLSX and Hex, and I want to ask you about eHex versus PHEX. I'm sorry to grill you, even though this is your channel, but we'll talk about that in a second.
No, go ahead.
But I've been a big proponent of PLSX because I thought the token economics were going to be much better. It's kind of in line with BNB, and it's kind of in line with Uniswap, where you're taking these fees and burning PLSX, versus PLS does have inflation with the validators, and at the time didn't have pump tires burning it, but now it does. So that's kind of a hot take. I need to look at that math, and maybe that changes my opinion a little bit. But personally, PLSX is kind of the blue chip that I thought would be the outperformer and the one that people should hold, just on if the network expands, it's going to be due to altcoins, and that altcoin economic power is going to fuel PLSX. But that's an interesting take, that now some of that is fueling PLS.
Yeah, here's the thing about PulseChain itself. So because it's a fork of Ethereum, people might not realize that Ethereum is not deflationary when the network gets used more. So there is inflation on every block, yes, but there's also fees get burnt. 25% of every block's fees get burnt. So when there's more fees, the burn rate overtakes the inflation rate. And so right now I'm looking at the pulsecoinlist.com/stats, and we've got, when you take in the inflation and the deflation, the supply change over the last 30 days is minus 8 billion Pulse. So 10 billion burned and then 2.5 billion issued. So it's net deflationary when we're getting traction.
Right. And right now it's really not even that much traction on the grand scheme of the crypto markets as a whole. I mean, I have, like I said, very few projects over here, which is great if you're early. But the fact that it's already deflationary with this much usage leads me to believe that if it can even become somewhat successful, blue chips do a 5x from here. It's going to be big in the deflation numbers for PLS, which might change my theory on why I've been riding PLSX this whole time, and why PLSX, if Pulse went up 10%, PLSX went up 15% due to that theory. But that might flip here with this new information I got from you here.
But let's also check out on PulseChain.com, the daily volume on PulseX is 20 million. What if that goes to 200 million? Right? I think sometimes Uniswap does 1 billion in daily volume. Like, what if in the bull market, if we're doing these crazy high volume numbers, I don't know. There's no way to, I'm sure you could run some numbers and predictions and stuff, but it does seem like PulseX still has a lot of potential, and it's the lower liquidity rate. It's the endpoint. So if you're going to buy PulseX, you have to route through Pulse. If you're going to buy Hex, you have to route through Pulse. If you're going to buy Surfer Top Hat, every coin you buy Pulse up on the way. Right. That's why all these coins, as long as they're sticky and they keep people in the ecosystem, the rising tide lifts all ships.
And that's why the liquidity web is a wonderful thing. Incentivizes the projects to keep all that economic power on chain. And then we're trying to figure out incentives, whether it's the means, the gifts, the passive income, the utilities, to keep these things sticky, to keep people wanting to retain exposure to these assets, and to keep their economic power on PulseChain, versus withdrawing, going back to ETH, or chasing something on Solana or Base or whatever the new shiny object is. Let's keep providing value here on PulseChain to keep all that money flowing in, get the net positive bridge inflows that we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks continuing. Yeah,
just consistent messaging, building, marketing, like it's all going to happen. It's just a matter of time. I'm pretty bullish about it. What do you want to close this up with? Any final thoughts?
I want to hear a quick rundown of your thesis on Hex. You said it was one of your favorite blue chips. Is that eHex? Is that PHEX? Why are you choosing one over the other? And ultimately, liquidity bonding, they'll kind of follow each other, but one will be the winner.
So I've still got my bag of eHex from before the fork, right? I was a long-term Hex staker from basically day 2. I'm not selling my eHex at the moment. I've still got my stake. I'm not emergency end staking my eHex because it still probably will go up because it is bonded in liquidity to PHEX. But when it comes to new Hex, and like some people might not want to hear this, but I'm choosing PHEX as like the real Hex. I mean, Hex on Ethereum, some people might call it Hex Classic, but I'm not as interested in buying it. First of all, the gas fees on Ethereum are high. Like PulseChain was built to save Hex from the gas fees, right? Richard Hart has come out saying he's not, overly bullish on eHex either, right? Like if the origin address was going to make a move, I would probably bet that it would be PHEX first. But of course, maybe eHex goes along for the ride due to the bonding. So I'm not like, it's not smart to be bearish or like want to say, let's kill eHex or whatever. I want them both to do well. If I had to pick one, it would be PHEX because that is the heart and soul of PulseChain. It's native to the PulseChain network. It's got better yield. And I like Hex in general because of the long-term lockups, the yield, the delayed gratification. It helps with your psychology when it comes to holding. It helps you hodl. You get paid to hodl. And people say, oh, the inflation rate just got cut. Yes, sure. But if you're really making these long stakes like I have, like 5+ years, you need to realize that the inflation rate will slowly tick up over time as T-shares become more scarce. So even though a 1-year stake is only paying you like 1.5% APY today, in a couple of years, it might be back to 4 to 5% APY.
Yeah, and I agree with you there, because understand, it isn't that you want EHEX to die, because it still is an onboarding tool and a marketing tool if it does well over on Ethereum, because there's a lot of money over on Ethereum. But like you said, if the OA is going to make a move or Richard Hart's going to make a move, where do you think they want to dump their money? Do they want to dump their money onto Ethereum network, or do they want to put that economic power into PulseChain network? They probably want to put that economic power into the PulseChain network and stimulate growth there. So that's why, I would have to dig up the video. This conversation makes me want to dig up the video where I was saying, hey, I think PHEX is going to outperform EHEX. I would probably make the swap over now at these ratios because XYZ cheaper, going to have where the economic power should want to be, where Richard Hart wants people to rotate. And that's kind of what we've seen. So like I said, liquidity bonding, EHEX will still do its thing. You still kind of want it to do well because that is a lot of the early believers in Richard Hart still own EHEX. And if they get the big gains over there, maybe that flows into the PulseChain network, of course. And you got big money on Ethereum. And you can catch the eye of some of the big money. If you see green candles on Ethereum, it's easier for them to buy EHEX than PHEX. But ultimately, I think PHEX will float a little higher than EHEX over the long term. Yeah,
I think we're kind of aligned there. I know there's some EHEX maxis out there. I don't think it's wise to be a maxi in anything, right? But just if you want to hold both, hold both. I'm not putting my new financial energy into EHEX. It's going into PHEX. Maybe I'm wrong, but hey, I've still got my stakes on EHEX, so I'm kind of happy either way. I just don't. The probability seems to favor PHEX.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, I guess we've been on this now for 42 minutes, so we'll touch base a little bit more. Hopefully, we can hop on these again. Check out cryptoparadise.net or X Crypto Paradise on Twitter if you want to see what's going on with Crypto Paradise. You're welcome to come on a Crypto Paradise live stream or live show or spaces anytime you want, so we can kind of cross-pollinate communities here and everybody hopefully can win together. And then, of course, check out the Surf token. Contract ends in one bed. I'm sure you'll have some contract addresses for both Top Hat and Surf, as well as PTGC was another big topic. Those are the projects that I'm putting my economic power behind. And so far, I've been pretty right. If you look at the charts and you zoom out, they've done well in fiat terms. They've done well against PLS and the blue chips. And I think the uptrend will continue for those assets throughout this cycle. That's not saying you have to be a full degenerate like me and hold very little blue chips. But if you're dabbling, some of the projects that we talked about today, I'm biased on Surf, on Top Hat, on Teddy, on PTGC, on UFO. They've done well. I think they continue to do well. And I would be dipping your toes into those waters and see if those green candles get you to FOMO win a little more.
Nice, man. Yeah, degeneracy is a spectrum, everybody.
Everybody's got their own spectrum.
You're looking at both ends of it right here. No, just kidding. We're on it. That's for sure. We're on some kind of spectrum. We're in crypto, of course. Anyway, go like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. Go follow Nick Helman, aka @CryptoHitman with 2 N's at the end. Crypto Paradise, huge community, multi-chain. We welcome them with open arms, obviously, into PulseChain. And yeah, my favorite meme coins, Most and Top Hat. And of course, I'm not going to stop shilling the cores. You're stuck with me for the next couple of years. See you guys on the next one.
Peace.